couple of rough options. I mean, part of me thinks take that Stressbot Y-Wing out as fast as possible because that's going to be a huge problem. I think that is the right call, but the other issue is that a regenerating Poe is not what you want to see as the last ship on the field.
I think if I saw Poe anywhere, unless there is somebody else with a bigger target paint on their head, I would go after him and just try to outpace those Y-Wings, get away from them.
I think that would normally be the right call, but that Stressbot throws a new wrinkle onto things because that is such a dangerous threat for IG. But it's a tough. I mean, that's why Paul is one of the best players in the world. He builds a fierce list, and he doesn't give you any easy decision making. Interesting asteroid placement here. We're gonna have a busy field.
Doing something very dense in the middle.
Yeah, very interesting. Both players seem to be collaborating to create this real cluster in the center. That's going to be difficult for IG to navigate, but IG is going to have plenty of space in other parts of the map. So we'll see how that comes into play. Very interesting stuff.
Now we're starting to touch on some aspects to strategy that really they come from the very fundamental beginnings of the game, and that's flying and maneuvering. And it's honestly got to be one of my favorite aspects of this game. I don't care about blowing up ships quite so much. I don't even care about winning whenever I play X-Wing. I just love to fly. I love to dodge in and out of asteroids. I love to dodge in and out of my enemy formation. That's what brings me the most joy, and I really hope to see some creative solutions to this dense asteroid problem. I really want to see Paul or James dodge right into those asteroids and just take control of them and bait the other player into coming in after them.
It's going to be interesting because this can play out in a couple of different ways. We could have a sort of joust along the margins, or both players could turn into the field right away. I think it's going to tell us a lot about the subsequent rounds of this game and where the action is going to take place, depending on where these initial maneuvers occur. I'm very curious to see if James sends that IG into the asteroid cloud or if he tries to skirt the edges, and where those Y-Wings are going exactly. Paul, it looks like he's got a brick of just a brick of lethality there. He's got the Y-Wings poised. He's got the Z95 as an excellent blocker right up there in front, and he's got Poe hanging back to seal the deal in subsequent rounds. So I think it's going to be a very interesting game. I suspect Paul will try to burn those Y-Wings down as quickly as he can, but that remains to be seen. It should be interesting.
I really love this stage here too. A little bit of anticipation and stress about what are these first maneuvers. Strategy is going to be revealed very quickly here, based on where James is going, and it looks like he's going to try to skirt the field of asteroids a little bit and try to draw Paul in. That's going to be my prediction.
Yep, looks like it. He may come forward with those Y-Wings. He may do some hard turns with those Y-Wings in the next turn and try to drive through the asteroid field, make Paul come through those rocks. It looks like there's a lot of really interesting potential for where this action could end up. Paul looks like he's got 3 maneuvers plotted for everybody. He's going to fly that formation forward, keep it staying on target, keep it right up in the action, and give himself the maximum amount of flexibility for when he wants to break apart and engage. I think he's going to play it nice and slow, nice and easy, and try to get some concentrated fire on one of those Y-Wings.
Now, the damage output on those twin laser turrets initially is not huge. You're really only doing, 1 point per attack if you hit. So per round, that's a max of 2 damage a turn. Yep. That doesn't accumulate fast.
No, but it's very consistent. It's one of those things where it may not be flashy, but it gets the job done, and it's comparable to a 3-dice attack.
Sure.
A straight-up 3-dice attack with focus in terms of expected damage output. The 3-dice attack with focus is a little spikier. You can put more hurt on. You can do crits with an ordinary primary weapon attack, which is important. But the TLT, you just can't beat it for consistency. It throws out attacks from all over the board, It can ignore its own firing arc, skirt the edges, fly through asteroid fields, make things difficult for the opponent. And it doesn't have to worry, especially with those R4 Agromechs. It can really put that consistent damage out. It's a great anti-ace card. I'm not sure it's going to be as useful against Paul's list because Paul doesn't really have any soft targets.
Sure.
Poe's a regenerating monster with Autothrusters, so he's a tough choice if you want to shoot TLTs at. And those Y-Wings are just beefy. I mean, it's Y-Wing versus Y-Wing, and Z95 is the least threatening bit of that list, so do you try to grease it early just because it's easy to do, or do you ignore it in favor of more important targets? It's a tough decision. I mean, it's still a good weapon, but there's no obvious move here. There's no, high fragile ace to knock out of the sky. There's nothing. There's nothing that is screaming for attention in the way that a different list might. Very interesting opening here. We've got the Y-Wings flying through this asteroid field.
Goodness, I love it. I have to say that that's probably what I would have done in James's position. Just knowing that I'm a little outnumbered in terms of ships, wanting to occupy that space, because those asteroids, when you're among them, they also give you a little bit of coverage. Mm-hmm. If at any time while you're flying or being flown at and the potential for attack is coming, if an asteroid breaks essentially line of sight, drawn in a straight line from one ship to you on the other side of an asteroid, you get an extra defense dice. Mm-hmm. So it is a strategy move all by itself, not just to force people through them, but to also give yourself a little bit of coverage when you might otherwise be light. Those Y-Wings, they're only evading with one green dice every time. So it might be the thing that James needs to give them a little bit longer time on the field, letting his aggressor sneak around.
Well, I think that's absolutely true, and I think luckily for James, I think he's thankful at this turn that there is no exchange of fire because his IG's a little bit out of the fight right now. But I like this strategy by James. It's very clever. I talked earlier about how he's going to have to avoid that Stressbot Y-Wing, that R3A2 Y-Wing, and he has put his IG in a great flanking position. If he can keep that thing away from that stress, he's going to be in much, much better shape in the middle and late game. The Y-Wings can get stressed. They don't care. They have turrets. It's not ideal, but they can take it. The IG 2000 cannot afford that. So I think it's a very, very clever opening by James, and it has the potential to really pay off big. I think we're getting to that point where both players know that first blood is coming.
First blood is coming, and it's also, this is kind of the make or break point right here. James has a big decision. When does he bring in his aggressor? When does he bring in IG-88 and commit him to the fight? It's because he can't let IG hang out for too long, avoiding contact. Otherwise, his Y-Wings are just going to get picked apart, and he'll be spending too much of the tournament round ineffective. But if he dives in and commits too early, because that IG-88 is on a big base, he's also a little bit less maneuverable in that tight cluster of asteroids.
It's true.
So he's going to have a harder time moving around, and he's going to cut his options down. Can you talk a little bit about what the IG-88, is it the B that...
Yep, IG-88B, that's probably if you're going to take a solo IG, you probably want either, well, B, C, or D are interesting options, but B, people favor B because it has that built-in gunner. Okay. And that is so important if you don't have support for IG, if he's flying solo like he is with the Y-Wing support instead of another aggressor. That's going to let him re-roll his Mangler cannons.
Let's go with that, sure.
So he's going to be able to use his actions for things like evade, for things like boost, and he's going to have that built-in dice modification for when it comes time to shoot. I think that's why you see B so consistently as a choice. So I think that's the reason he's flying B. You can make a good argument for C as well, because you can boost frequently and gain that die. But it's hard to argue with IG-88B for sheer offensive consistency and power.
So
he's going to take a hit.
We just saw some really daring maneuvers of James Beaver's Y-Wings basically making a turn to jump back out of the asteroids again. He set one Y-Wing up for some difficult decisions to make next round, and he flat out ran over an asteroid with the other one. We saw James taking a dice roll after running over that asteroid. That's because whenever you overlap a asteroid or an obstacle with your ship, either the template, as he did, or if your ship lands on it at the end of your movement, you have to suffer some consequences for getting really close to those very dangerous spaceborne objects. And we saw one of the penalties is chancing a damage that you might take.
Always a risk
if your ship hits it. And very unluckily, one of his Y-Wings took a little bit of a ding, scraped some paint on one of the smaller asteroids there. But I can see a strategy evolving. James used those Y-Wings as a teaser to get ships to commit. And Paul is going. It looks like Paul is at the beginning of a split in his forces, getting ready to commit one Y-Wing to take on some aggressor. And his.
I think that's Stressbot. I think Stressbot's got its mission pretty clearly cut out for it. It's going to fly at IG and try to slow him down.
And it looks like Poe is going to stick with his main support. Of that Z95 and that other Y-Wing with twin laser turrets to try to chase down and throw some more damage on these vulnerable Y-Wings. But he's still got choices. If you look at his position, he can commit to either force, either prong of this attack right up until next turn, giving himself just a tad more of an option.
I think this was a very smart play by James, though. He did take that shield hit, but he's put a rock in between most of the shooting that Paul can muster, and he's really set up a great mid game with those Y-Wings fleeing, which is what they want to be doing, while still firing, and with IG nicely positioned there. Paul's got some good counterplay, though. Like I said, that Stressbot's actually a pretty good intercept course, and that formation he's got going is going to get most of its shots off this turn. So good play on both sides of the field, but I'm very impressed with this opening by James. I think it was a really masterful bit of bait and switch there.
We just saw an opening attack with Poe, relatively ineffective, and now here's another attack coming from. Looked like it was coming from.
Might have been a twin laser turret attack, and it looks like another one. Trying to chip some damage on that Z95.
Mm-hmm.
So far, no luck. And the second Y-Wing. Choosing his targets. He's going to go Y-Wing versus Y-Wing. Try to get an unobstructed shot here. The laser comes out. Always helpful. We got an unavoidable hit, so the Y-Wing will lose a shield. And another one, not as strong. Paul's got a chance to... it looks like the Agromech might be coming into play here. Yep, he's going to spend that. He's going to spend that focus token. The Agromech kicks in, gives him a target lock. This is why the Agromech can be a very effective thing, because he's going to have that lock for subsequent turns, and he's chipped 2 shields off the Y-Wing. It's a pretty solid turn for James. And this one is of course, the in-arc Y-Wing. James again very carefully dodging that really scary 1-2 range band, but he is gonna throw his own twin laser shot out and lose a shield from that Y. And again, this one he's gonna spend the focus on. Takes another shield.
That was a pretty standard exchange with twin laser turrets, especially on across vehicles that have full shields up. You're not going to see a lot of damage out of them, but that damage is going to be consistent, and that is their biggest advantage, is just laying down hits a little bit at a time, softening targets for ships that have a slightly better attack potential, or just to let your opponent know you've got them dialed in, and watch themselves.
Mm-hmm. And that Y-Wing is taking damage. Oh, you know, it actually looks like the Stressbot Y-Wing is far on the right rather than on the left. I was mistaken earlier, but it is using its powers to really pile the stress up on that enemy Y-Wing. That Y-Wing is going to be very limited in its maneuver choices from now on. I think Paul's going to try to focus in and burn it down. Luckily for James, that's not happening to his IG. If he had to choose a ship for that to happen to, the Y-Wing is certainly a better choice. But Paul's also got that Y-Wing way on the right and somewhat protected from enemy shooting. So it's going to hopefully, for Paul, stay in the game as long as possible. So I was mistaken before. The Stressbot Y-Wing is actually on the far right of that formation rather than on the left. Pros and cons to that. We'll see how it plays out. It's well positioned to, despite its own stress, turn that arc on the enemy. Of course, it's going to be even less flexible James wings, because not only is it double stressed, but it is also locked into a single firing arc. But I think for Paul, the trade-off in flexibility is more than made up for by that increased control potential. I think this is a setup we're actually going to see a lot on Rebel Y-Wings, this 26-point twin laser turret, BTL-A4, R3A2 Stressbot. It's an excellent control piece. I actually fully expected to see it in a number of builds. Paul Heaver usually ahead of the curve on the meta, or at the very least making really smart meta choices. I fully expect to see this kind of Y-Wing in a number of lists.
It's fun to see these really great players who've been on the tournament scene for a while now, generating these new ideas, these new lists. It's not as if they're coming up with anything revolutionary, but they are expressing a significant amount of finesse and very obviously practice to how they fly these lists with these very interesting setups. The meta is the discussion. The meta is what people are playing and what people are trying out and what's popular. But that, like space, is infinite. There are so many choices. There are so many decisions to make. There are so many different ways that a game can go. Where this game goes may determine sort of a shift in meta for at least the way Y-Wings are played, or the way that Rebels are played in general, or even the ways that that Scum is played too. The Scum list played by James is a variation of my very favorite. I would swap out Boba Fett for IG just because I love Boba Fett. It's all in the mask, but those Y-Wings with the twin laser turrets are amazing. I didn't give a whole lot of thought to the R4 Agromechs. I may have to take another look at them.
Well, it lets you try to get more damage out. Really, it lets you set up better offense, and you're trading extra maneuverability for it. But you James's TLT Y-Wings should theoretically outshoot Paul's single TLT Y-Wing just because it has that extra offensive capability. But I think the word that you used earlier that rang a chord with me was finesse. I think at this level, finesse is the name of the game. You're going to see a lot of similar lists, but it's those little tweaks. It's those subtle little additions and subtractions combined with a really high level of skill that shape how a list is going to perform against another list. At Nationals, we saw anti-pursuit lasers used to hilarious effect on Dash Rendar as a little bit of anti-Sunter technology. We had not seen anti-pursuit lasers at a high level before because the thing that they're good at countering was not performing as strongly. But with the advent of Autothrusters, with the advent of Emperor Palpatine, automatic damage looks really good, and with a big base like Dash, anti-pursuit lasers just make a lot of sense. I think those Agromechs are going to be great for really cracking through tough defense.
Sure.
If you see Sunter fell across the table from him, he's going to love having those target locks on that ship, and hopefully it's going to let him outshoot Paul here. Although he has suffered pretty greatly from those asteroids. The play that he made to draw Paul through them cost him 2 damage on his Y-Wings, which is, that's a bit of a hole you're digging yourself into. I still think it was a great strategy, but the dice have not been kind. They have definitely made him pay for that. What it looks like here is Paul's going to be able to put some stress onto IG, which is exactly what he wants to do. But IG should have a fairly clear run away from that Y-Wing in future rounds. And he's going to be able to put some hurt on Paul's Y-Wing in turn. But James is taking a little bit the worse for wear on this initial exchange. He's got a little bit more damage on his ships, and it's going to be a little harder for him to recover from this opening.
I'm really curious about what it appears Paul is doing with Poe, threading from one side of the engagement to the other. It looks like at the same time he's avoiding IG-88, it also looks like he's getting a bit more aggressive going after that Y-Wing.
Yep.
But we've got Poe now in a somewhat vulnerable position. He's not focused up. Doesn't look like he needs to focus with that kind of
that is some
3 attack dice.
Hot rolls for Poe. Hot
roll
rolls
there.
for Poe.
But he's gonna have to chew through quite a bit of hold to make a dent on that Y-Wing, and also opening himself up to.
IG's got a powerful attack coming. He needs some big play here, and that is not too shabby. Not too shabby.
What was that with? Was that a twin laser?
No, that is
laser
the
cannon?
Nope. That's the primary. It looks like range 1.
Oh, jeez.
Hucking 4 dice. That's the nasty thing about a Mangler cannon IG is he's dangerous from afar and he's extra dangerous up close. So that's a big hit for James. That's going to help even the odds a little bit.
Now you see James.
Fire control system kicking on.
That's right.
But I think Poe is in a great place actually because James can shoot him here, and it looks like he's going to. But Poe's got auto thrusters. He's got recovery. He's going to take a shield. But he's going to have to do at least 2 damage to Poe just to make up for that R2-D2. But it looks like he's going to take it. So Paul's taking a bit of a risk. His big piece is out in the open. And it looks like he is going to take some significant damage from this. The real question is whether he's going to use that Y-Wing against Poe. It looks like he is. Yep. All guns on Poe. Well, you got to take him down. He is and an unfocused Poe is about the best chance you've got to put damage on. So I like this play by James. Oh, Poe gets a good roll.
Very, very lucky
solid roll.
Evasion roll by Paul there with Poe. You don't see that too often. 2 evades for 2 attack.
Yep. And it looks like Poe actually didn't take too bad of a hit on this exchange, so Paul's got to be pretty happy with his evade dice on that exchange. It looked like could have been a lot worse for him, and I think Poe's going to make sure to turtle up in subsequent rounds. But Paul's a risk taker. That's one of the reasons he's fun to watch. He was totally willing to accept taking that fire on Poe for the chance to put out some dice of his own. So it's aggressive play, and it has treated Paul well in the past. We got a very close shot there. It doesn't seem clear whether he's in range or not.
Looks like he's got long range.
Looks like he just has range on that Y-Wing.
He's going to spend the focus to convert 2. for a twin laser turret hit.
And those Y-Wings are really in trouble. They are going down fast and hard. That's not what James wants to see. Paul's dice have been pretty solid. It takes another damage.
Now, in those instances, you're not even seeing James roll evasion dice. That's because the evasion for those Y-Wings against a secondary weapon like the twin laser turret is still only 1. Despite being at long range, they do not get their distance bonus for that because secondary weapons are a different animal altogether.
And because of the unique way that twin laser turret works, it just has to hit, and it will do 1 damage. It's very consistent. So if Paul is rolling 2 hits, and James only has 1 defense die, there's no real need to roll that die because it's a guaranteed damage. So they're skipping over the obvious and just playing quickly. I think you see that pretty commonly with twin lasers. When it's a foregone conclusion, you just take the damage instead of bothering with the dice roll. You don't want to use up your luck.
Nope. Well, you and I had a very interesting discussion the other day about dice and superstition. What are you talking now about luck? You are on the side of, well, I don't think suspiciously about dice at all. Luck doesn't play into it. This is a dice game, though. Come on.
Well, that's true, and I think gamers are, of course, notorious for their feelings about their dice. I've seen some pretty funny posts on our forums and about smashing a failure of a dice in front of the other dice to teach them a lesson, that kind of thing. But no, I am not particularly superstitious about dice. I've been playing games for years, and I have this just bag of dice. I think half of it is from like old board games and stuff. They're all different shapes and colors, and I just grab a handful of them and I roll. But maybe that's a superstition in and of itself, because I've had this same bag for at least a decade, and it's treated me pretty well. So maybe despite all of my anti-superstition talk, like doesn't matter, dice are dice, maybe I still have a little bit of that.
Well, maybe it's not the dice. Maybe it's the dice bag.
Maybe it's the bag. You might be onto something, Chris. It's treated me well.
It could be a bag of holding. Anyway, we just saw a fairly uneventful exchange between IG-88 and the Y-Wing closest to him from Paul Heaver. All of it amounting to the Y-Wing trying to lay a bunch of twin laser turret with the BTL-A4 title against that IG-88, but the IG was doing just fine. It looked like he was rolling, like 4 green dice at a time. I'm not quite sure how that was possible.
Might have been some obstruction in play there.
You're probably right.
But it's exactly what I predicted earlier, that double stress on that IG from that stress dealing gold Y-Wing is going to be a huge problem. Normally, IG would be stress-free. He'd be able to do a Segnor's loop, which is the soft bank followed by a 180-degree flip. Great repositional move, crucial for the IG-2000. But the double stress on him means he may not even get a shot next round, which is going to give Paul time to finish off those badly wounded Y-Wings. I think we're seeing the power of Paul's list right here. Huge amount of firepower, a strong control element. He's able to play the ranges expertly. We know he's got an eye like a micrometer. He can put those ships pretty much exactly where he wants them to, and it's really going to be a struggle for James to keep those Ys alive long enough to return enough firepower. And while those shots against Poe did some damage, they're also shots he wasn't taking against the Y-Wings that were already damaged. So that lets, for Paul, the damage is evenly spread across his list. That's a problem for James.
It's dangerous.
Yep.
If there's anything I've learned from playing X-Wing as long as I have, and for watching discussions on the forum, you do not want to spread your damage around. You want to focus down,
if at all possible,
as much as you can. I mean, insofar as you're not leaving yourself open to being harassed by a ship you've left alone on the flank.
Yep.
Maybe you need to shoot into that ship every once in a while, let you know it's still there. But you really have to take care and finish the job one ship at a time.
Yep.
Otherwise, a A TIE fighter with 2 damage on it is still dangerous. A
Yep.
Y-Wing with 1 hull on it is still dangerous.
It's still shooting at maximum offensive firepower unless it has a crit. The crits can help. I mean, you put some crits on, you can take a little ship efficiency away, but that's a gamble. That's random. It's much better to put a ship, out of action than it is to wound a bunch of ships. That's just the nature of the game, and James has got a tough choice here. That I don't know what the right play for that IG is, because if it takes another stress, it may be out of the game for a very long time. And Paul that's exactly what he's doing. He does not care about the fate of that Y-Wing. It's just there to really neutralize IG-2000, and it is going to be able to do so. It has a hilarious amount of stress on it, and it may end up losing shots for a huge amount of time, but it's keeping James's fiercest, most frightening, most dangerous ship out of the fight, and that's all it has to do. Gives the rest of his list time to finish off those Y-Wings, and I think it might be the game-deciding thing, that stress Y-Wing.
I really love what I'm seeing here out of Paul's movements. This screen of Y-Wings and that Z95 spreading out, occupying the center, a place I think James should have stayed, and aggressively pursuing ships that are damaged and forcing the strong ship in James' build to run away.
Yep, and he's trying to escape, but he's not going to be able to. He's going to end up the round, despite doing a green maneuver, with 1 more stress than he started it. It's a real problem. I don't know what the answer to that was. He needed maybe a different attack vector or something that was going to keep him in the fight longer. But what's really tough about it is there's no good answer other than killing that Y-Wing. And the way Paul had that Y-Wing positioned, it was going to be on the receiving end of very little firepower. So Paul, excellent setup, knew exactly what he needed to do to keep that IG out of the fight. A hilarious number of stress tokens on that Y-Wing, but again, it doesn't matter. Even if that Y-Wing never shoots again, it has done its job. And I suspect it will be able to shoot, because it's going to be able to bank softly to the right and get some shots on those Y-Wings if they survive the round. So Paul, despite the limitations of the Y-Wing's dial, despite all that stress, despite having a forward arc, has played that ship masterfully, and I think it's going to be a huge problem for James for the rest of the game.
Well, and looking at Paul's ships and how much life they have on them still, he's got 1 Y-Wing down. Most of its shields are all of its shields are gone, and he's got another Y-Wing down to just a couple of shields left. But really, there isn't a lot Paul has to worry about, as long as he doesn't completely whiff annihilating one of the Y-Wings he's pointed straight at. He can use Poe to hammer, fly out, regenerate, and chase down that IG. Or he could just let the IG live and take a modified win.
Well, and he's done an expert thing here. I mean, what he's really done is he's reduced James's list to effectively being 50% of a list, because he's not flying against 50% versus 75%. He has reduced it to 2 badly wounded Y-Wings against 3/4 rebel ships. That IG's out of the fight for the time being. By the time it's back in the fight, it's again going to be 100% of a list versus 50% of a list.
Right.
And that is how you take it apart by pieces. Mm-hmm. You divide and conquer. It's really what he's done here, and it's a great strategy. I suspect he's done this before.
Sure.
And that Y-Wing is gone, and so the first kill is Paul's, and most of his ship's still relatively healthy. His Stressbot Y-Wing, the crucial Y-Wing, has still got 5 hull on it, so real danger there. Nothing in range to shoot at it. Now it's going to make that IG pay even more for existing, I guess, by putting more stress on. Whether or not these shots do any damage at all, it's absolutely devastating for James.
That's another solid hit on
yeah,
IG-80.
bad dice for IG. Well, the thing is, you take IG's tokens away, and his defenses soften up so much.
the inability for that IG-88 to take any actions means he can't convert those 2 focus tokens that just showed up. That would have saved him from an attack easy. But now that he's stressed out and not likely to get rid of that stress anytime soon, he's going to be flying at the whim of someone else's lasers, constantly shooting at him.
That was a really rough round for James. Especially since that Y-Wing went down to Poe, it doesn't even get his firepower. Really tough.
So it looks like we've got the Z95 taking the last shot on the Y-Wing, relatively ineffectual. We're back to dials. James he's got a tough time right now.
Yeah, I really don't see a way for James to win this, to be honest. I think Paul's got him in the corner. I think James is going to have to salvage some MOV, but I don't really anticipate him being able to do much more than that. Just given the rough shape that stressed out IG is in, the fact that he's in a corner facing the wrong way, he's going to have a few rounds before he even gets any shots off. This game was won in deployment and in the targets that Paul chose, and just the fact that R3A2 Y-Wing is such a devastating counter to IG 2000. I think Paul has probably placed that in his list for a very good reason. The IG 2000 normally a very fierce ship to see across the board from you, but we've seen its Achilles heel here today.
Mm-hmm. I wonder how differently the game might have resolved if James had taken that IG down the side of the board for an aggressive flanking opportunity.
He would have lost out on that first big hit, but it may, in retrospect, have been the right thing to do. But it's tough. I mean, that Y-Wing's got phenomenal range.
Right.
He did. I think James did the best he could to keep that from happening for as long as he could. But without having enough firepower to bring that Y-Wing down, I think we're looking at just the inevitable situation. A different vector might have helped.
Sure.
But really, I think it's just an incredible counter, and you're asking James to outplay a counter flown by 2-time world champion Paul Heaver. It's a tough matchup.
Yeah, I think were I in James' position, I might be a little intimidated flying against somebody with such experience. How many games do you think Paul's played?
It's got to be in the hundreds at this point.
You think
it
so?
Really does. It really. I think the question we've got to be asking ourselves at this point: Are we looking at a three-peat? I see that list, and I see a list that can take on anything.
It's got potential, but Paul's got 7 more rounds after this.
Oh
one
yeah,
to play.
it's not going to be easy. I would be shocked if we have a 3-time world champion, but if anyone can do it, it's Paul. But I mean, that's not to say that James has played poorly. James has played very well. No. I think he caught some unlucky dice early on that really punished his Y-Wings, and IG was not able to escape the trap that Paul set for it. But I think he had an excellent opening. He's forced Paul to do a lot of very daring things here, and I'm sitting here watching the game and I'm just not seeing a ton of better options. So I think to James's credit, he's got a nasty list, caught a tough matchup, and I think he flew the best he could and caught some bad luck there. But it looks like a cleanup operation for Paul's forces at this point. It's going to be really, really tough on James. But I think James might be able to even up that margin and not take quite such a devastating loss. Did that Y-Wing did take a damage, took a crit.
It looked like that Y-Wing took a critical damage.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that really hurts Y-Wing sometimes, those criticals, because so many of them can pile up on Y-Wings.
Yep. Now, IG does have proton bombs, so I'm wondering if next round we're going to see that Y-Wing ionize and finally taken out of the fight. Or not proton, I'm sorry, ion bombs.
Well, that would be fun to see. A Y-Wing completely stunned without any chance of getting rid of stress. I also want to see what Poe is going to do here in the next. Ooh, it looked like IG-88 pulled a a red non-stop maneuver.
That's very interesting.
So he bought himself one round of that Y-Wing not attacking him.
Yep,
which
Inertial Dampeners, quite helpful.
Which is good, but I don't know if it's going to offer him any advantages.
Well, I think what he wants is he knows that he's pretty much out of the fight at this point. It's going to buy him a turn to sit there, and then he can make a hard turn to the right, and maybe get at least a couple more shots off. Because those ships that Paul has are going to have to fly at least relatively forward, and if IG does a hard turn next round, he might be able to catch someone in arc. It does protect him from the shooting, which is important. I think at this point, James is just looking towards those next 7 rounds. One loss does not take you out of the tournament by any means, particularly if you can minimize the margin of victory damage that you take. So this is going to protect his IG from damage, hopefully keep it alive till time is called, and maybe allow it to get a couple of extra shots. I mean, it's not going to win him the game by any means, but it is going to help him lose by a lesser margin, which is important. It's important in a long tournament to think long term and not think short term. And he's kept his head. He's still making good decisions. He's still playing to the max, which is the sign of a top level player. Beautiful paint job on that IG 2000 too. I just have to say, very, very nice.
That's been a very exciting and fun thing for me to observe, are the ways people like to personalize their ships. There's a game with these beautiful pre-painted miniatures. Sometimes you're going to see a lot of the same thing on the board at the same time. Watching 2 YT 1300s play each other, two YT 1300 lists play each other. You have 4 YTs out on the board. Like, it kind of gets hard to distinguish who's flying what. But when these players take the opportunity to personalize with these designs, flashy, some of them ostentatious, all of them fun,
or even just going straight to the source material, the Star Wars paint schemes. Like the Aces packs that we produce show some alternate paint schemes off, but there's a lot of squadrons in Star Wars with really cool looking designs on them that players can draw from. So that's always fun to see.
For me, it's a sign of dedication to this game. How often people kind of take these components and make them their own. I love to see it. I've done it myself. I have a cadre of slave ones that just look so weird with these non-standard paint jobs, but I don't know, they're my ships.
Yeah, it's fun, and that's a beautiful ship to paint. I mean, that's a lot of fun. I think it's great. One of the things that I like about this game is that you can just crack open a pack and play right away. But the minis are fantastic. I mean, I've been painting for years, and they're really nice. They paint up really nicely. They're very detailed, very crisp. They don't skimp on quality just because they're pre-paints. So they really do paint up nicely. IG is going to be feeling the pain here. But if that Y-Wing can hook around, it might at least be able to score a kill before it goes down. It looks like Paul is concentrating all firepower on that IG-2000. That leaves James's Y-Wing free to at least hopefully grease 1 or 2 of Paul's ships before he's taken out of the battle. And here comes that ion bomb. That's going to buy him some more time. It's about all the IG has left. And that's the thing, that the IG is an absolutely lethal ship, but it is very, very forward arc dependent. It is not a ship. It is not a ship that has a lot of out of arc options. Bombs are one of them, and this bomb will help. But again, it is going to be tough for that IG to get another shot off before the end of this game.
We're seeing Paul pull, looks like a 4 long choreogram, just trying to put a little distance between him and twin laser turret Y-Wing left. Paul will be able to put some damage down on that Y-Wing and probably probably take it
and
out.
Paul's unmodified attack dice. Every time Poe is shot with unmodified dice, he's rolled 3 hits. It's been treating Paul right, that is for sure, and that is not what James needs to see. James needs to see some whiffs. When you don't have a focus token, when you don't have target lock, odds are you're not going to be rolling 3 natural hits, and both times Poe has fired, he has achieved that. So that is tough. That is tough to deal with.
But let's also remember, too, that red dice, they want to hit.
They do.
They have more hit results. They also have more focus results. Just the potential for landing damage is greater than the green dice potential for evading it. Remember, this is a game about ships shooting each other. We're not writing love letters across space. We are here to annihilate each other.
Yep, it is tilted towards offense. That's one of the reasons the games can finish in an hour and a half. We've got a half an hour left on the clock, so I think we'll have a full resolution of this game over the next few rounds, would be my guess. It's just down to whether James can pick up a few points from Paul's list or whether it's going to be a flawless opening victory for Paul here.
I think James' best bet is to circle around on that headhunter or hunt Poe, but he's got to be able to get away first, and that's just so hard to do with these Y-Wings that can shoot 360 degrees with twin laser turret out to range 3, not giving any range 3 bonuses.
Well, and Poe is on Y-Wing destruction mode, and that Y-Wing only has 1 hit left. I don't think it's going to last too much longer. IG is taking a lot of damage. Once again, IG is going to bear the brunt of this stress Y-Wing. That MVP for the game for Paul, far and away. That ship has single-handedly sealed IG-2000's fate here. IG-88B taking so much pain from this one humble Y-Wing. Dials are down. How much stress does that Y-Wing have? He's looking like Tycho Selchu over
I gotta
there.
be honest, that is the most stress I've ever seen on a Y-Wing that just doesn't care. It doesn't care. It has 7
stress and an ion token. Doesn't care. Doesn't matter.
I gotta take a look at Paul's list again because I love the attitude. Maybe I'm inserting a bit of attitude in it. Y-Wing don't care.
Y-Wing don't care. No, it
Y-Wing doesn't care about how much stress he's got.
Doesn't care about asteroids. Doesn't care about stress.
Well, I mean, it's the perfect platform for dealing stress out. I mean, look at how much stress that IG-88 has. It is locked down. It doesn't matter what IG-88 does right now. He's gonna be an arc of so many ships. This looks like the kill stroke.
I think it's going to be.
Unfortunately for James, and his support, the Y-Wing he has left is too far away to really help. IG-88 is going to try to turn in.
Is he going to land on that rock? Oh, heartbreaking. Oh, and that is just a heartbreaking thing that IG finally got turned around. But he's going to land on that asteroid. He's going to have no shot. He's going to possibly take some damage. No shot, no action, a pile of stress.
He's going to get shot at by 2 ships. So that's the only saving grace right there. He did not take a damage from that asteroid at all.
Well, and actually, it could be worse. I don't think he's actually going to get shot at by any ships. That Y-Wing has a range 1 limitation on the TLT. The Z-95 is touching, and that Stressbot is finally out of the fight. So actually, that on the surface looks bad for IG, but it actually might not be so bad. He's going to be able to clear that scrum. Not going to take any fire this round, so he's going to live to fight another day.
We're reading some live stream as you guys are texting to us. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask Alex or myself regarding either the game you're watching or X-Wing in general? We can't answer any other questions for you about any other games that may or may not be played.
But we can certainly talk X-Wing all day, so shoot them at us if you've got them. We'll answer them if we can. And it's all down to this poor, beleaguered, stressed, and desperate I-2000.
It looks like Poe took out another Y-Wing.
Yep, Poe sealed the door.
A little distracted.
And Paul, I think, is going to walk away with a perfect game. Really showing what a fearsome competitor he is.
We've got just a little under 25 minutes in the round, and that, unless IG-88 can make some amazing moves, which it doesn't look like he can, he's gonna succumb to Y-Wing twin laser turrets or Poe Dameron turning in and just punctuating this.
Paul's got a lot
of fight.
Paul's got all of his tools in his toolkit. I got a question about from Dry Penguin. Can my kids grasp this game? I have 10, 13, and 14-year-olds.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd say so. He said it looks complicated but fun. At this level, certainly it is more complicated. But the great thing about this game is I think that kids as young as 5 or 6 can enjoy it. It's very, very simple mechanics, high-level play. It's simple but deep. It's like chess in that way. Very easy to learn, but almost infinitely deep to master, and it's a ton of fun. It's one of those games that I really recommend kids. Get into. It's a great gateway game. It's a great early game, especially if they're Star Wars fans. Absolutely, totally recommended for kids.
Our rule book for the core set does a really nice thing with some starting scenarios and also some very easy setup that allows you to essentially scale how much content you play with per game. You're not, obviously, when you buy the core set, playing with the variety of ships you're seeing even on the board right now. You get 2 TIE fighters and 1 X-Wing. But that is enough to fill several days worth of initial strategy, learning how to fly around asteroids, learning how to deal with action economies. Mm-hmm. What do I do after I plot my maneuver? When does my ship move? These are all very easy questions that can be answered right out of the core set. When I was at Gen Con 2 years, I was giving demos of X-Wing like crazy. I taught so many under 10-year-olds how to play this game that later in the day came back with their dad or mom or uncle holding like all the X-Wing they could possibly muster. That happened so many times. And even if you never play the game out of the box, you still have these amazing miniatures to look at and fly around the house. But the way this game works, the strategy involved, the mechanics, it all comes together so nicely. Start with the core set, play it, buy into it, play it till you're hungry for more. And we've got more. We've got 7 waves of ships out now.
It's just growing and growing, and more on the way. Got another question here. Someone wondering whether I believe that Paul's list can take on Emperor Palpatine plus 2 aces. And I think that it can. Yeah, I think that Paul has the Y-Wing in his list for a reason. The Sooners can have exact same problems that G88B did this game with that Stressbot. It is not an easy ship to fly. Soontir's going to have a little bit more maneuverability by being a small base ship. He may be able to play the range bands a little bit better. But even so, if Paul can catch Soontir Fel with that Y-Wing, he's going to leave it stressed, and a stressed Soontir is a dead Soontir. That is the difficulty.
One shot with that twin laser turret, adding stress to Soontir is just going to it's going to hamper Soontir for the rest of the game.
Absolutely. So that's going to be the challenge for a Palpatine plus 2 aces list. They're going to have to kill that Y-Wing without delay.
It's also going to dramatically affect how Vader plays. Sure, Palpatine is strong. He can change one dice result a round. But that's not insurmountable.
No, not at all. Not at all, especially if you've crippled the aces. So I think Paul will be able to actually ignore the if he wants to, and use Poe and that Stressbot Y-Wing and the TLT Y-Wing to take out those aces. So I think he's got a real shot at it.
So Alex, coming from Dom Fluff, what do you think your biggest mistake or regret has been since you took over, I'm assuming, design of X-Wing?
So I started in Wave 4, so I've been doing it for the last couple of years, building on some really strong foundation, obviously. Jay Little and James Niffen and Corey and the Sadlers, all the people who worked on the game before me, and of course working with Frank, an excellent designer as well. You know, mistakes are made here and there. I think the biggest one was probably the early Phantom design.
Sure.
We had we basically made a monster unintentionally. We put the decloak timing window in such a place that it was very, very difficult to overcome. Fortunately, we're always tweaking, we're always trying to make this game the best that it can be, and a simple change to that cloak timing window has really made that ship much more reasonable. So I think that was probably my biggest mistake. Thankfully, I think it's corrected now. I think the Phantom is still a very strong ship, but I think that it is very manageable. I mean, we might see it in the top tables, we might not.
So
and it is
we just saw a sickening and dramatic end as IG tried to turn in on Poe. James made a risky maneuver trying to fly over an asteroid to get in Poe's face and clip that asteroid, which was the last damage IG could possibly take. Whenever I play something like that happens to kill, it's a little sad. It's a little heartachy and sickening.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, that was an inevitability. Now, the nice thing is, James was able to get a ship. He was able to get a kill, so it will not be a perfect win for Paul. James, very clearly strong list, strong player. He's got 7 more games to play this tournament. He may still crack 16. It's a good list, and I'm sure he has learned some serious lessons here from this game.
We've got one more question coming out from our listeners and watchers out on the internet, and it's for you, Alex. Which ship are you most excited to see in the finals?
I don't know that it can go the distance, but I would love to see a Scum Boba Fett up on the top tables. He's got one of my favorite abilities. It's so aggressive. It's so much fun. He has done very well in national tournaments and in regional tournaments. It's a possibility. I suspect IG may be the slightly more consistent choice across the meta, but interestingly, this game he would have been better off with a Fire Spray, because the Fire Spray's rear arc really would have been able to stay in play. And had that been Scum Boba instead of IG, he would have been getting rerolls from proximity to ships. He would have been getting more shots. So I think there's a place for Scum Boba Fett. He's, I think, easily the best Fire Spray in the game, and it would be nice to see Fire Spray in the finals. So I'm rooting for someone Scum Boba Fett. If you're out there, I'm rooting for you. We'll see what happens.
Scum Boba Fett would have been fantastic. He's my personal favorite. In this list that we just saw, also kitted out with something like Lone Wolf, as soon as his friends die, he becomes a little bit more resilient too.
Yep, and with 2 twin laser turrets supporting him, he can play the range game. He can get away from his own ships. He can aggressively attack enemy ships. I think he's a strong piece, but he doesn't have quite the turtle power that the IG does. He can't sit there with 3 agility, Autothrusters, focus, and evade.
No.
But he is more well-rounded in some ways than the IG is. So a well-played Scum Boba Fett can do very, very well.
Sure.
We'll see if it makes it into the top 16, top 8, but I'm pretty confident that some Scum list is going to be up in that top 16. At least a few Scum lists will make it, because they're a very strong faction, even in the relatively early days of just Wave 6 and 7.
Sure.
For that faction, I think they're only going to get stronger as time goes on.
Let's cross our fingers. So we're wrapping up with our first match online. Paul Heaver, reigning World's X-Wing champion,
and
2
clearly
years ago.
Still a force to be reckoned with. Yeah.
He fought against James Beaver II. It was a very, very interesting first round. James gets a lot of respect from me, bringing some scum to the field,
Yeah, absolutely.
which was nice to see. And he really gave that game against Paul his best shot.
Absolutely.
Paul, though, proved one of the reasons why he's sitting on top is the finesse we talked about. He flew expertly around asteroids when he needed to, and he flew over them when he felt like it. He chose where he was going and who he was shooting at.
Yep.
And to some extent, he also chose where his enemy was going to with his deployment and using his ships as a wedge to kind of split IG-88 away from its support. That was some pretty awesome flying some of the best flying I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
Just recently.
Paul put his ships exactly where he wanted them. He had incredible coverage with the Stressbot Y-Wing. Had a great plan of attack, and it really worked out for him.
I think you can expect to see a lot more flying like that out of Paul throughout the tournament, though we may not see him on screen until potentially finals.
We'll see. I mean, Paul's got a win under his belt, but it's a long, long road to the top. And Paul was at Nationals and did not make the cut. So anyone, even the mighty, can fall.
Sure.
But I think Paul's got a really fierce list, and it looks like he is on his tip-top game, and we all know what a monster competitor he is. I fully expect him to do well today.
A monster competitor, but a nice guy.
Absolutely.
If you get the chance to meet him, shake his hand, ask him some questions about X-Wing. So that was the end of round 1. We've got 7 more rounds
7 more
left to go today. You can check back in a couple of minutes to see our glorious faces conveying the very best information about X-Wing for you at Worlds 2015, sponsored by FFG. Thank you so much for joining us.